What is going on, IF Warriors? What is up? So today we're going to talk about how intermittent fasting is the ultimate health hack. Why? Because it does a little bit more than just help you lose weight. It does help you lose weight because it helps you control calories. It helps you partition body fat to use body fat as fuel. But we're going to take a look at this person, the new method on TikTok. Over 1 million views, 1.1 million views on this video, talking about intermittent fasting and its additional health benefits adjacent to weight loss. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at it. I'm going to press play.
Intermittent fasting is the ultimate health hack. And no, it's not about weight loss. Every time you eat, your body has to do a lot of things to digest food. And when you fast, you're actually giving it a break from focusing on digestion and focusing on other things in your body.
That actually is a true statement. When you are eating, your body is going through a process of breaking down food, using energy for that process. So there's a thermic effect to food because your body is using energy to move all the nutrients into different locations, break down, put the waste in over here, and make sure that the bile gets, like, there's so much going on that your body's just going through this like process where it creates an element of focus, right? Where there has to be some focus there because you're eating. When you're fasting, your body's still expending energy through other ways, but that means that it allows itself to focus on other things and not just the breakdown of the food, especially if you're just eating all the time, like 6 hours a day or 7 hours a day or whatever. I mean, 6 times a day or 7 times a day, whatever is your regiment. But let's continue.
Here's how it works. Your body needs glucose to stay alive, but your body is a hybrid model, meaning it can get its gas either externally from every time you eat and it breaks down into glucose, or internally you have a really cool feature that can go into your fat stores and turn it into glucose. The fancy word for that is gluconeogenesis.
Okay, she's half right there. The way she worded it is slightly misleading. For example, glucose neogenesis is simply just your body taking anything that's synthesizing something that is a non-carbohydrate source, like glycogen, for example, is a carbohydrate source. A non-carbohydrate source could be fat, could be lactate, could be protein or amino acids. So glucose neogenesis is the process of turning non-carbohydrate sources into carbohydrate sources or glucose. So in this instance, yes, your body fat is being turned into a certain form of glucose, but it's also actually going through a process called beta hydroxybutyrate, where it filters through the liver and then comes out as ketones. But your brain can only take so much ketones. So at one point, it will convert other sources like muscle after a certain point into glucose to continuously fuel your brain with glucose source and not just ketone source. So you always want to make sure that you're not over fasting. Of course, I always have a link to the Lumen. I'm sponsored by Lumen because it's literally my favorite intermittent fasting sidekick tool. You breathe into it, it tells you if you're over fasting, if you're not, simply by checking it every day, making sure that you are within your biological intermittent fasting time frame. But anyways, let's go ahead and continue. If you want it, link is down in the description box below. Put the code FLEDGEFITNESS and you'll get $50 off your Lumen. Let's continue.
So when you're fasting, you're getting your glucose from an internal source. During that process, your body produces ketones, which is why people talk about keto and ketosis. They usually use it wrong, but this is what it means. The reason we want intermittent fasting and we want to go into ketosis is because that is when the body starts to clean house. It reduces inflammation. Studies have been done on people with psoriatic and rheumatoid arthritis that shows that during intermittent fasting, during ketosis, you release a molecule called BHB, which helps reduce the aches and pains, reduces the symptoms. It helps balance your insulin levels and increase insulin sensitivity. It increases production of human growth hormones. When we're kids, we get a lot of human growth hormone. That's how we grow. But when we're adults, we don't get a lot of it, and it's what keeps us young. We get more of it when we're in ketosis. It improves your sleep, because if you're not busy digesting, then all the internal clocks know it's time to get ready for sleep.
Okay, this one, the other stuff she's talking about, HGH, insulin sensitivity versus insulin resistance, and an increase in insulin sensitivity because you're not spiking your blood glucose consistently. You're not spiking your blood sugar levels. So you start to become more insulin sensitive when you eat less. That is true. But the sleep, that might be a little bit of a reach, because we haven't seen any studies necessarily talking about, or we haven't seen a good amount of studies talking about sleep being kind of heightened or better because you're doing intermittent fasting. On the flip side, because you have like the fight or flight, right? The norepinephrine, the epinephrine increase. A lot of people wake up in the middle of their sleep. They wake up instead of sleeping until the body gets used to doing it. And it takes some time sometimes for people to get used to it, to the point where they're not waking up in the middle of the night simply because they have like this energy flow. Actually, when eating a lot or when you're full is when you tend to be sleepier. The body triggers more that it's time to sleep after a big meal. That's why you get sleepy when you eat, because it's more like, oh, you've done what your daily duty of staying alive. Now you can sleep. So it's actually the reverse. You get kind of more sleep, or you actually get that sleep where you're more comfortable, in the sense where you're not going to wake up if you eat, as opposed to if you don't eat. It almost flips. You tend to wake up more if you're fasting and while you're sleeping. But kudos to the rest of what she said.
It helps you fall asleep. It helps you stay asleep. It improves the quality of your sleep. And of course, when you sleep, growth hormone goes up, cortisol goes down, insulin levels out. So it's a win-win. It improves heart health.
When you sleep, also leptin increases, and leptin increases is literally one of the best things that you get from sleep. So leptin is a hormone that tells your brain that you're full, and that helps you not overeat. Because if you have poor leptin secretion, then you end up overeating. You ever had a feeling where you ate so much, but you didn't know until like maybe a few minutes later, and then now you're so stuffed that you could barely breathe? I'm sure that's happened to a lot of people, but that tends to happen when your leptin is not optimal, like it's not as efficient, it's not as secreting enough, and that tends to come from a lack of sleep. So you want to make sure you get sleep so that your leptin secretion is very effective, and you're able to know when you're full and reduce the possibility of overeating, which means you'll overeat calories. So
it improves brain health. And yes, it does help with weight loss, but I don't want this to become a weight loss conversation or a body size conversation. This is about optimizing your health, and that can be done at any size.
See, I definitely understand the mental health aspect of things, like, being overweight, being not overweight, obese, etc. But we cannot escape the fact that there are health issues that are tied to obesity, because there are health issues that are tied to obesity, that are tied to overweight. Now, can you be healthy and be overweight in terms of metabolic health? Yes, you can. You can do that, but it is very difficult to do, because what it would require is for you to be incredibly active, very active, but also overweight. So you're very active, but you're aggressively overeating to the point where you're not ever allowing yourself to lose that weight. And that's almost like a dichotomy to itself. You're rarely do you have a person who wants to be incredibly active, but also is incredibly overeating to the point where they're basically completely overshadowing even all of the workouts that they do, all of their fitness that they do. One cool study was a study done on sumo wrestlers. Sumo wrestlers are incredibly active, and I actually have a video essay on it on this channel. If you guys want to take a look at it, it's called "Why Sumo Wrestlers Are So Healthy." But they were very metabolic. They were metabolically healthy, and when put through a scan, they noticed that they had no visceral fat, and that came from activity. That's why activity helps you burn a lot of visceral fat, and visceral fat is the brown fat cells. Brown fat tissue. So that burns much quickly. So because of their activity, they had no fat around the organs. All of their fat, the majority of it, was subcutaneous, below the skin, and therefore they weren't seeing any of those health issues that most people see when they're overweight, because they carry both subcutaneous and visceral fat. So it is a very weird location, a very weird position to be. People that, like factory workers, tend to also fall into this category, depending on the work and the workload and what they have to do. But normally it's simply that you are super active to the point where you've completely removed visceral fat, but then you're still overweight because you're still overeating, and you're overshadowing all of that activity by making sure that you eat to the point where you're consistently gaining weight. So that is a very unique situation. So you can be healthy and overweight, yes, but still it is best to err on the safe side, and losing weight is part of that, being on the safe side in terms of making sure that you are as healthy as you can be. Plus, studies, even with looking at metabolic health being equal, studies have still shown that when taken into account of all-cause mortality, that people that are obese and overweight still tend to die earlier and more frequently than their non-overweight, same metabolic health counterpart. And because of so many different factors, we're not going to dive into it, but things like the difficulties of doing surgery, and damages that could be found, blunt damage that could be found in the body from car accidents, the difficulty of removing and transporting a patient in instances like a car accident or something like that, where if you were of a different size, it could have been a much quicker process. But yeah, basically, we're not gonna go into that. I know I'm going into a big tangent or kind of a rant or a separation, but I 100% understand the mental health aspect, and I respect the mental health aspect. But I am going to tell you guys how it is, straight. Can you be healthy and overweight? Yes, but it is a very unique place that you have to be in, where you're very, 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 very active. All right, let's continue.
There are all different kinds of intermittent fasting. At the new method, we promote something called 16-8, which means you eat.
The most popular one, and the one with the most studies out there. And the studies are very, very positive for 16-8.
For 8 hours, and then you fast for 16. But don't worry, that 16 hours includes your sleep time. So for example, you stop eating at 7 p.m. when you're done with dinner, and then you don't eat again until breakfast at 11 a.m. And that's 16 hours. But 16 hours might be a little hard for people who are just starting, so don't rush into it. Get 12 hours, get 13 hours, go slow. The last thing we want is for you to be shaky or hangry or be cranky to the people around you, because they're not going to like you. Start with wherever you're comfortable, and then slowly increase your fasting time by a half hour each time until you're comfortable at 16 hours. I hope this helps. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Okay, so yeah, I for the most part, there's certain things that based off of the studies that we have, where I think that I disagree with what she said. But for the most part, I agree with what she said. There are studies that have been done with intermittent fasting. I know a lot of people want to say, oh no, the intermittent fasting benefits, you just see them because you're losing weight, and the losing of the weight is what is giving these benefits, or where you're seeing these benefits come from. But they've actually done metabolic testing on blood samples of people who were told to not lose weight, where they kept them at the same weight and they looked at their blood levels, their changes that were happening with them within their metabolic health. In terms of stuff that she was even mentioning, things like, oxidative stress, skin, tissue, biological issues like that. They looked at all of that stuff and it improved, even though the participants didn't lose weight in comparison to the control group, which didn't lose weight at either, but didn't do intermittent fasting. So the intermittent fasting group had multiple different metabolic positives that came out of doing intermittent fasting without weight loss. And it was important for them to not do weight loss because we wanted to see if there were health benefits independent of weight loss. And that study definitely showed a positive leaning aspect to that. Okay, so there we go. This is the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Please hit that subscribe button. Please, I beg of you, subscribe to Fledge Fitness and hit that like button. And we will see you in the next one. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate you guys always. Peace out.